Jan Vandenbos asked, the winner and loser of Hay, oh, you're asking a prediction for Hay Bellew. Sorry, bro, I missed that one. It's already happened. Obviously, Bellew with a terrific win over Hay this weekend. Where does British boxing stand in comparison with the US in your eye? Just in a much, much better place. But it's also kind of unfair to make the comparison because it's a much, much different market. America is huge. It's a huge country, over 300 million people. And as far as entertainment goes here, there are so many options. If you want to do a more fair comparison, imagine, if you will, comparing the UK to if California was its own country. That would be a more fair comparison. And if you included Las Vegas in California, so if you included California and Nevada, because literally, as soon as you cross the border from California to Nevada, Vegas is like 30 minutes out. It's right there. So it's an extension of the LA market. Vegas truly is. That would be a more fair comparison. And that, that would be an interesting debate. I'll say this much. There are just more entertainment options as far as sports go here in America. You're competing with many, many more sports here. So it's just difficult to promote boxing here in comparison to the UK, where you have built-in network deals. The networks put up money to help promote shows and stuff like that. We got another chopper. Hopefully you guys aren't hearing that too loud. So it's just a different market. But I'll say this, the UK has the healthiest fight scene in the world right now. California has the healthiest fight scene in America. UK has the healthiest fight scene in the world right now. And I can't wait to get over there for a fight, man. Renee Salcido asks, I bought a car with a manual transmission so people won't ask to borrow my car because people don't know how to drive with a stick. Good idea or bad idea? I guess it's a good idea, but how many people are asking to drive your car, man? You must have a nice car. No one ever asked me to drive my damn car because, like I said, I just drove pieces of shit. Shaolin AG, is Hopkins scared Triple G tied his record? I don't think so. Hopkins' legacy is secure. He's very, very confident in that. What he accomplished as a middleweight and then moving up to light heavyweight, and yes, it was very selective matchmaking. It was, in my opinion, a little smoke and mirrors, his legacy there, but on paper, it looked good. And as far as him taking on top challenges at light heavyweight, he eventually did do that when he fought Kovalev and even Joe Smith. Either way, his longevity, Hopkins' legacy is secure, bro. I don't think he's worried about what Triple G is doing at all. From a promotional perspective, he promotes Canelo Alvarez. Triple G beat Canelo Alvarez last September. In my opinion, if they fight this September, I think Triple G will beat him officially this time. So Hopkins kind of has to play the role a little bit, but I don't think he's worried about that at all. Tim Nick asks, why don't you do more breakdown videos focused on certain fights? I remember you did more in the past, but today you debate 5 fights in one video. So you're probably talking about the neutral corner, right? All right, Tim, I would like to do more fight-specific breakdowns and stuff like that, even if it's a 10-minute clip. And I know that's the nature of media now, particularly on YouTube and social media. Part of my plan when we move to Atlanta and get the studio set up there is to have everything set up in one room in a studio where I can literally go in there, click record, boom, and just do what I do. And then from there, my editing and my software and all that's right there in the studio. That will give me more capability and the time to do that kind of stuff. That would also make the neutral corner a little more repetitive, right? So, there will be people maybe that would rather watch or listen to the podcast of TNC, and then there will be people like you who just want to go right to a specific fight. So down the line, that is the plan. Right now in LA, I'm just too damn busy to break it up. So what I try to do out of respect for you guys is put it all in one place. Instead of just doing immediate, what I think is clickbait, and just doing a video every day about the latest boxing news, right? Today there was an article, well, it's coming out today. Hearn, it's probably coming out right now as I'm recording this. Hearn is about to do a streaming deal with DAZN is how it's pronounced. It's a company, it's a streaming company, a service out of the UK They have a big footprint over there in Europe and in Japan, and they're expanding to Canada and America. So I could do a video talking about that real quick for 10 minutes and post it, because that's the hot news for today. That's how most of these channels operate, and that's why they have more subscribers and more make more money. I could do it that way, and maybe I'll do it more like that in the future, but I'm never gonna be one of those guys that just jumps for the quick click. You know, I like to know a little bit more about the story and then report it in my podcast, bro. Carlos Espino asks, hey, Michael, how do you rate all 17 weight classes right now? How do you stack them? I don't have the time to think of all 17 right now, but off the top of my head, I like light heavyweight, cruiserweight, middleweight. You got to include welterweight and superfly. With the World Boxing Super Series, their next tournament is going to be in the bantamweight division, and now Inouye's there. Bantamweight might jump up soon, we'll see. But right now, off the top of my head, those are the top 5, I would say. CR97 asks, what were your jobs before you started covering boxing, and what fight had the best atmosphere you were ever at? Jobs, dude, I've done everything. I'm a former Marine. I worked in concrete, construction, stuff like that. But for the last 10, 15 years, I've worked in banking. That's been the day job that's paid my bills. And right now, I'm basically a business analyst / reporting analyst in the banking finance world. Best atmosphere for a fight. There's literally too many to mention. But, you know, it's just at StubHub last week, and it reminded me, and this is gonna sound crazy, but it reminded me of Golovkin-Rubio. There was some kind of magic about that night where the legend of Golovkin and just the party atmosphere of his fights, and even though the fight sucked and it was a complete blowout, just the atmosphere that night was really, really special. And I'll never forget it. It was just one of those events. Now, I could talk about Vargas Salido at StubHub Center. That was absolutely special as well. That was the first big notable fight after the passing of Muhammad Ali. And there was just something in the air that night. And then we got the fight of the year also that night. So that's another one. But there's so many I can mention, bro. But just because I was at StubHub for my last fight, it just made me think of those off the top of my head. New Hendricks asked, do you think Virgil Hunter is the most overrated trainer in boxing? I don't know if about the most overrated, but one of the most, certainly. Maybe he is the most. Honestly though, bro, I might go Floyd Mayweather Sr. I always thought he was vastly overrated, but he's not working right now. So yeah, Virgil Hunter. Do you think boxing can once again become a major mainstream sport like the NFL or NBA? And I take it you're talking specifically to America. The answer is no. It won't be. What I refer to boxing as here in America, I call it underground mainstream. Meaning, the diehard fans for boxing are minimal. Talking maybe a few million people at most in America. So it's underground as far as the weekly small club shows, and you guys watching this, you're part of that underground. If you're watching this, you're not a casual fan. But it's also mainstream because it's ingrained in popular culture here in America. And when there is a significant boxing event once a year, or a super event once every 5 to 10 years, the entire country pays attention. It's unfortunate that usually those super events don't live up to the hype. Take Mayweather-Pacquiao or Mayweather-McGregor, even though that was a complete shit show. Or you have a situation like Canelo-Golovkin where it was a very, very good event, good fight, but there was controversy. That often happens, and that makes the mainstream shit on boxing more. But in that sense, it's underground mainstream. You think of all the cultural references to boxing in popular media in America, the movies, TV shows, just watch commercials. I see references to boxing in TV commercials all the time. It's part of the mainstream culture, but as far as the sport itself and the diehard fans, it's very underground. I call it underground mainstream, and it will always stay that way. It's never going to be a mainstream sport again. America is too pussified now, and just the structure of boxing and how politically incorrect it can be, and just the nature of the way it operates for networks and sponsors and everything like that, they're not going to touch it the same way a sport like the NBA is or the NFL. So no, it's never going to be mainstream again. KK asks, is Terrence Crawford the only one of the welterweights who can beat Spence? Right now, I'd say yeah. If they were going to fight right now, I'd favor Crawford because Crawford's just too experienced for him. A few years from now, might be having a different discussion, okay? And also, well, maybe one of these guys from 140, maybe it's Prograis. You know, maybe Prograis eventually does this thing at 40 and then moves up and becomes a killer at welterweight. We'll find out. But for right now, yeah, man, Spence looks like the goods. He really, really does. Jerry Pleasant asks, who do you rate as the best boxer you've seen footage of in each of the 8 original divisions? Oof. That's a tough one off the top of my head, man. But for flyweight, Chocolatito. For bantamweight, probably Adair Joffre, the Brazilian fighter. Probably the best Brazilian, yeah, definitely the best Brazilian fighter ever. Featherweight, Willie Pep, Guillermo Papaleo. Absolutely the best featherweight ever. Lightweight, Roberto Duran. Welterweight, Gimme Robinson. I rate him as a welterweight, not a middleweight. Middleweight, Hagler. Light heavyweight, I'm going to go Roy Jones, man. He was really special. I know he started as a middleweight, but as a light heavyweight, he was damn good. He grew into that division very well. And heavyweight, I still rate Joe Louis as the best heavyweight ever. I still do. Now, would Joe Louis beat Vladimir Klitschko or Lennox Lewis? No, he wouldn't. Would Joe Louis even beat Anthony Joshua? Maybe, maybe at the right time, but right now, probably not. Or Deontay Wilder, too small. But just based on what he accomplished and did in the sport at that time and did for the sport, I rate him as the best heavyweight ever. Fricky92 asks, what is your favorite genre in music? Are you a fan of Tarantino movies? With music, bro, I like a lot. I can't say I have a favorite genre. It really depends on mood, man. It really depends on mood. I'll say this, modern pop music is absolute shit. I've never been a fan of top 40 pop music. There's always some songs that are catchy and that I like that are guilty pleasures, you know? Particularly like some from the 80s and the early 90s and shit. But pop music now is absolute garbage for the most part. Tarantino movies, it depends. I like Pulp Fiction. I think it's fun. But then there's certain movies like Kill Bill. I think it's overrated. I like Reservoir Dogs, but yeah, Kill Bill and stuff. I just felt it was overrated. So it depends on the film. Some people go ape shit and blow their load for Quentin Tarantino. I think he's good, but he's not amazing. He's had a couple of really good, fun movies. But would I watch his entire set? Like, would I own his entire set of big films? No, I wouldn't. All Off the Mighty asks, what do you think about Sean Newton's content where he is constantly calling out the LDBC on their racially motivated biases? You know what? Someone's got to do it. I like Sean. You know what I'm saying? Sean is a YouTuber that I've seen some of his videos. I don't really watch YouTube channels a lot, guys. There's only a few that I watch. There's only a few podcasts I listen to. I'm just too busy. I can't listen or watch all this stuff. But I've seen some of Sean's stuff, and I like that he calls out people like that. We need more of that. You know, I can only do it so much. I have to keep things muted to a degree. But guys like him could just go out. The boxing rant guys, you know, Vince and Kenny, they can say whatever the hell they want because those are fan channels and they could just, you know, say whatever they want. We need more of that. And yeah, so I think it's funny. The stuff I've seen from Sean where he calls out those guys, it's pretty damn hilarious and spot on. Gabriel Garcia asks, why haven't you applied for live TV commentary and replace the likes of Max Kellerman? Unfortunately, bro, in TV, it's about who you know. It's not about how good you are. It's funny you mentioned the commentary, though. I'm calling my first live fights. I've called fights before and scored fights and stuff like that, but not live on a live broadcast. And I'm doing that for the first time this Friday, a Thompson boxing card. I'm excited about it. A little anxious, a little nervous, but mostly excited about it. Maybe it can lead to something more. But The premium network jobs, it's about who you know, it's about who your manager or agent knows, it's about doing favors. It's not much different than Hollywood. Remember guys, boxing is the entertainment industry. It's not different than movies and TV or any of that shit in that respect. John Tufan asks, at any point did you feel frustrated or discouraged to the point of quitting YouTube or felt like that about the boxing scene? There are times where the shit wears on you. There are times where you get frustrated and where you need little vacations and little breaks. And I'm big on that. So that's why it's so difficult to do something like the Neutral Corner every week. I do 50 episodes a year. And I know that you guys appreciate that. I'm one of the few channels that really does a weekly podcast for real. A lot of other channels do podcasts, but they take breaks for 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes a month at a time. And I don't do that. It's very difficult, but yeah, there are times when I go on vacation with Tiff and stuff like that, sometimes I'll log off of Twitter for a little while because the shit does wear on you, particularly when you're getting beat up by a lot of people for things that aren't true, and they're twisting your words and there's agendas. That stuff can wear on you. But in the end, it doesn't wear on me that much. You know, maybe for a day I'm like, these motherfuckers, you know, and I want to punch somebody. The next day, I'm fine, because in the end, quality gets revealed. And a lot of these guys that hate on me and, you know, they're bastards, they get revealed for who they are. And eventually their channels get shut down or they log off for a while because they get exposed. And eventually, I think my quality wins out. As far as YouTube and stuff like that, you know, the haters, and then I know YouTube censors people. It's really, really frustrating. They've cut down the money that we make, like not just in half, but like 1/10 of what it used to be. Not that I make a lot of money off YouTube, and that's not why I do it, but it does help. It helps pay for equipment and stuff like that. They do make it difficult. They make it a pain in the ass, but it's kind of a necessary evil if I want to get my stuff out there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it gets old, but at the same time, I love it, and I love the sport, and I enjoy, you know, it's like with this video, man. I asked you guys to ask me questions, right? And I got a million questions in just a few days from you guys. That's gonna make for an hour-long response video. And a lot of you guys will watch it, and that makes me feel good. I feel like, okay, people out there appreciate what I'm doing. Ring Magazine's brought me on. Now, there are people at Ring Magazine who don't want me there. There are entities who do not want me there, particularly inside their parent company, okay? But Doug Fisher, who's the editor, has been pushing hard for me to be in the magazine. He's been pushing hard on me to do commentary and live hosting for some of Ring TV's cards. That, you know, for someone like him, who's one of the best in the business, to believe in my work, you know, for Thompson Boxing to just pick me up to call a fight this Friday, for guys like Steve Kim, Undisputed Champion Network, to pick me up, for Boxing Monthly Magazine to trust me, I must be doing something right, and that makes it all worth it. You know what I mean? Let's see, where are we at here? Grammy Kazo asks, who wins this fantasy matchup? A prime Gennady Golovkin versus a prime Jake LaMotta? Gotta go with Golovkin. LaMotta's just too small. He was a welterweight. He fought at middleweight, but he was a welterweight, had an amazing chin, but it would have looked a lot like what we saw with Vans Martirosyan this weekend. LaMotta would have lasted longer, obviously, but it would have been very, very bloody and brutal. Would have been a corner or a ref stoppage, something like that. Just too big a gap in natural strength and size. Florian Siegrist asks, once you mentioned that you were working for a bank, he's asking just about my banking job, and am I keeping my job that I have right now or taking it with me to Atlanta? And he works in banking in Switzerland. Would it be difficult to come to the US and get a work permit for that kind of work here? You could get a work permit to come out here and work in banking and finance if you have the type of specialized work that they need. So, if you could do something in IT or forensic accounting or some sort of translation, if you could do translating, a really specialized segment of what a company needs, they will absolutely sponsor you to come out here. They do that a lot for engineers and IT guys. For what you do, I'm not so sure, man. That might be harder, but if you need a bank that needs someone who can speak your language, that could do translating, abso-freaking-lutely, you could. For me, my company is keeping me on. I do reporting, like contractor reporting work for a bank downtown. You could actually see my building in the background back there that I work at. And they're keeping me on board at least through August, but I'll be working remotely. I'll be logging in from home and just doing some occasional reports and stuff for them because I've gotten pretty good at doing that. So that is a good way for me to kind of pay the bills during the day on top of the boxing stuff and the acting stuff where I make some occasional income or additional income as well. Maciek Kosicki, I know I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry, brother. He asked, Tommy Morrison, how do you rate this heavyweight? Underappreciated by some, maybe overrated by others. All things considered, the kid had a lot of potential and he really could fight. He came up in the amateurs. He actually grew up boxing, had real natural skills and talent, and some good raw natural power. Unfortunately, he started believing his own hype too much, got into the ladies a bit too much, into the booze too much, and started juicing, started using steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, and that really derailed the potential he had. Had he, let's just say, for the sake of argument, relocated early in his career to Detroit and trained with Emmanuel Stewart and been a disciplined student of the game, he really could have made some noise. Was he ever going to beat Lennox Lewis at his best? No. Just wasn't there, and his size, you know, in the 90s, those era of heavyweights were still fairly small compared to these heavyweights now. So he was always going to contend. Morrison was going to contend. But against a guy like Lennox Lewis, no, he was never going to beat him. But he could have been a multi-titleist. He probably could have won titles a couple different times and competed better in his most high-profile fights if he would have took training more seriously. Unfortunately, what he's most known for is the bad Rocky movie, the worst movie of the Rocky series, and for getting AIDS. And for the strange way he died with his, him denying that he had AIDS, and his girlfriend / caretaker right before he died, kind of trying to start a campaign with the media that it was all a sham and it was a conspiracy and he really didn't have AIDS and all this weird stuff. She's actually reached out to me recently trying to get me to do stories about that. Odd. The man had AIDS and he died of AIDS. And it's a shame the way he went out the last few years of his life, and that he's remembered for that more so than being a good fighter, because he was a quality heavyweight. Jay Perez asked, hi Michael, do you think Usyk or Gassiev could become top heavyweights if they move up? To a certain extent, I think Gassiev has a better chance because I've met both of them in person, and Gassiev just has the bigger natural frame. Also, the way he boxes, I think he would have a better shot. Usyk, I just think a bigger, naturally bigger, stronger guy would wear him down more. And he's a guy already at cruiserweight that needs to throw a lot of punches to win fights. So I just think he'd struggle more at heavyweight. They'd be in the top 10, no doubt. But I think Gassiev might have a bigger ceiling at heavyweight than Usyk. Alisher Sitkazm, I know I'm butchering these names, asked Lennon or McCartney? Yeah, that's kind of an unfair question because Lennon was chopped down before he could make more songs. Now, he had some good quality songs. I'm not a huge fan or anything. I'm not a huge Beatles guy or whatever. But if we're talking about their solo careers, McCartney just has a bigger body of work. So you'd have to go with him for his longevity and body of work. But it's arguable that Lennon had the better, longer lasting songs. So, you can go back and forth on this. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go with McCartney just for the overall body of work. Devin Cruz asked, do you think there should be a super heavyweight division? I get asked this all the time. I always say no, okay, because I hate, that would be the 18th division in pro boxing. But let me say this. If we got rid of the junior and super divisions overnight and went back to the original 8 plus cruiserweights, so that'd be 9. And then we added a super heavyweight division. That'd be 10. I could live with that, and I'd be good with that. Absolutely. But right now, it'd be an 18th division, bro. We're just not ready yet. Now, in 20, 30 years, it's probably going to be necessary. But right now, it's not. DS Kennels 210 asks, Spike O'Sullivan teased the September fight against Canelo. Do you think it's a serious option for Golden Boy and Canelo, or a ploy to get a better deal for the Golovkin rematch? It's very possible. I hope it doesn't happen. It'd be an absolute travesty. People bitched about Golovkin Martirosyan. Guys, that was a last second put together kind of fight. That was regular HBO, not in Vegas where you're paying thousands of dollars for a ticket, but at StubHub Center in a real venue where real fans could go, although the tickets were overpriced for that fight. Just imagine how much they'll bitch if it was Canelo Spike O'Sullivan. Man, even if that was on regular HBO, it'd probably be in Vegas or something. No, please, God, no. Please go right into the Canelo-Golovkin rematch, boxing gods. But sadly, it's a possibility, bro. Kevin Jenkins asks, hi, Michael. A few months ago, you had a tweet that went viral. It read, roses are red. Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. And then he brings up the use of the term demographic. Oh, okay. Kevin, I know what you're getting into. Let me get background for everyone else. A couple months ago, I don't know when it was, YouTube's Twitter page literally tweeted something like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, roses are red, violets are blue, subscribe to black YouTube channels. That's all it said. And this is not like YouTube Black or something. It was just YouTube's Twitter page, which has millions and millions of followers, and they just tweeted that. And then they pinned it at the top of their page. Completely unnecessary, racially divisive tweet that I think did more to harm black YouTube channels than help them, which is why the term regressive is used with the far, far left people who call themselves progressives, but a lot of times their racially divisive rhetoric regresses things and takes us backwards. So I responded, and I said something, and again I'm paraphrasing. I made fun of their roses are red, violets are blue poem, and I added my own. I said roses are red, violets are blue. Dividing people on demographics is a regressive thing to do. Subscribe to anybody you like, regardless of their race, if you like their channel. It's the 21st century. Let's all move forward together. I said something like that, and it went fucking viral. Did not expect that. When I say viral, I'm talking, I think it had over 10,000 likes. And people, I still get notifications, people still retweet it. It got mentioned on several popular political podcasts and shows and stuff like that. I was like, holy shit. I think even some newspapers that follow Twitter trends and stuff mentioned it, not in the paper, but on their website and on their Twitter accounts. So it was this big viral thing. And what Kevin Jenkins is asking is, dude, you're talking about moving forward together and racially divisive rhetoric, yet my boy, Steve Kim, created the term demographic. And, you know, I was actually with Steve when he created that term, and so was Doug Fisher. We were having conversations and it came up, and Steve started using it in podcasts and stuff, and then Doug used it, I used it as well. It has since been changed to dummy graphic. Let me explain this to you, Kevin, and let me put this out there for everyone else to just explain this demographic / dummy graphic thing, because a lot of the racially divisive people we were making fun of, the YouTube channels, the amateur kind of media guys that get credentialed to some fights, who have popular YouTube channels, who were extremely racially biased. I'm just going to go racist. They're just racist. Even though one of the most popular channels from that world was actually, they had a booth outside StubHub Center this Saturday at the Golovkin-Martirosyan fight, which I found hilarious because they were just sitting there bashing Golovkin, doing a live stream there or something. Okay. the term demographic, what it means, number one, it's not a race. It's referring to these YouTube channels, these people on Twitter, some fighters in themselves, and some media affiliations, whether it's legitimate media or guys who call themselves media that we all make fun of in the real media, that are racially divisive, that have double standards, that change, twist words and everything like that to push agendas and narratives. They literally have double standards and biases based on demographics. That's what the term was talking about. It wasn't talking about a particular demographic of people. Why Steve called them the demographic is because they are all about demographics. However, it is true, it just so happens that the majority of them are black Americans, but not always. There are members of the demographic that are Caucasian, that are Native American, Mestizo, Asian, Mulatto, Hapa, whatever, from every part of the world. But the majority of them are young, not very educated boxing fans. Started really getting into boxing with Floyd Mayweather, okay? And are big into social media and stuff, and that's where they get their news. They don't really know much about boxing history, and it shows. The Boxing Voice recently posted an interview with Eddie Hearn, where Eddie Hearn absolutely destroyed the interviewer. I don't know who the interviewer was, but he got absolutely destroyed. And it might have been the dude who runs the channel or one of the guys that they have as an intern, basically working for free to pay that channel, which I don't understand why they do that. But Eddie Hearn destroyed the guy because this guy was trying to compare, I think, like previous heavyweight fights, like Lewis Holyfield or Tyson Lewis and stuff like that, to the modern heavyweight division, and saying Joshua Wilder is bigger and will do more pay-per-view buys. And like Eddie Hearn looked at him like, are you insane? He basically exposed his lack of true boxing knowledge in his own video, right? So these guys are so biased toward their agenda and the fighters that they're in with, because really these guys get credentialed to fights because they're in with certain fighters in camps, and that's how they get in, that they expose themselves all the time for just being racially biased hacks. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that's what demographic refers to, and that's what it means. And that's what Steve Kim, Doug Fisher, and myself, who we were talking about. We were making fun of these guys for being biased with demographics, calling them the demographic. Now they've flipped it, and they've turned it into this whole us versus them thing, which it's not. We don't think about these people or talk about them except when we're making fun of them. And it's very rare. Most of the time we're concentrating on doing our jobs. So hopefully that brings a little light to this thing for you, man. I understand where you're going. I understand your concern. It makes sense, but that's the reality.